I'm ready to go. Let it rip.
All right, good evening. I am calling to order the meeting of the Newburyport Public Schools School Committee business meeting for Tuesday, February 25th, 2020. Mrs. Kennedy, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Hawkeiser?
Here.
Mr. Menon?
Here.
Mayor Holliday?
Present.
Ms. Spalding?
Here.
Mr. Reardon?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Present.
All present. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will be starting this meeting with our budget forum, which is the first presentation of the budget ideas that the district has been working on. So I guess I'll turn it over to you, Sean. Oh, he's not here. Superintendent Gallagher is recovering from knee surgery and is not here tonight, although he has been very much in touch with everybody in the district. So I'll turn it over to you guys, Angela, Vic, and Nancy Liza, for the presentation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Do you want questions as they arise, or
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
All right. So the city's given us 3.5% this year, which is $1,076,000. Brings our appropriation up to 31.8, and keep going past the mission. Yeah.
Just a reminder of our mission.
Yep. This is our first draft of priorities and number one priorities. They're not currently in the budget. Bresnahan School would be a 0.5 math interventionist and a 1.0 kindergarten teacher. That is dependent on enrollment. It might be a necessity and not a priority. We might have to move it into the budget, but we're still waiting right now for final counts.
When will we have final counts?
They're doing registration now. She's at about 150. So.
At what point does it trigger a new teacher?
Amy?
It's always hard to say, Mayor Holliday. We're doing registration now. I would want to be able to maintain no higher than like 120 going into the summer, like 120 to that 150. If we were to tip more than that, we would be needed. I suspect we're probably going to hold with what we have now, but I don't ever want to have to come back and ask for an add-on when we haven't talked about it, because I never really know until the summer hits. But we did add a classroom teacher last year, and I'm hoping that the two higher trends that we've seen for the classes are going to dip off a little this year. So I think it's hopeful that we'll be able to hold what we have in the budget already.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Middle school, to grow the world language program, it would be a 2.0 teachers. High school is looking for humanities and a 0.4 increase in math for a total of $300,000.
Can we ask about the world language teachers?
Yes.
What language?
Okay, so that's still undecided. And the reason for that is that, as you know, we've been working on building more of a comprehensive program.
Mm-hmm.
So if these two positions would be funded through the budget, then we're going to go back to reestablishing our priorities with Dr. Scherf, who has been our consultant in helping us build stronger world language programs, because there's advantages to both ways. So it could be a German teacher, it could be a German and a Spanish teacher, it could be two Spanish, it could be two German. We're really looking at all the variables involved. So if you went with one language, we could go a little bit deeper. World language teachers could be on team, and there's many advantages to that. But there's also many advantages to students having choice around a language and feeding the high school programs. So it would really be a deeper discussion once the decision is made to actually fund the two positions. So I can't tell you definitively.
I guess a couple things come to mind.
Okay.
It seems a little backwards because I'd be more inclined to vote to fund a position that I knew what it was going to do. Right? So
Right.
like, to fight for it as a priority, I guess I'd like to know what the plans are.
And I think we have parallel plans, is I guess what I'm trying to say to you. However, you know, we're doing new placement tests this year. Our students just took the new exam. We haven't had a chance to analyze all of that data. That's going to help inform the decisions that we make moving forward as well.
That's placement going from 8th to 9th grade.
That's placement going from 8th to 9th, but that's also telling us about
How effective our
how
program is.
effective our program is this year, too.
Do
So,
we already have, I believe this is the second year, the kids are going from 8th to 9th grade after 2 years of Spanish?
Lisa, is this year, too?
Yes.
So do we know, Andy, how successful those kids who have started high school in Spanish 2?
Well, can I answer that?
Yeah.
The same test that we're using for our 8th grade replacement, we're also using for the 9th grade replacement to understand how students are doing at the end of 9th grade as well. And that is also under the guidance of Nicole and Alden Metz, who is the instructional leader for the high school. So collaboratively with the high school and middle school, under Nicole's guidance, we've been looking towards that.
So currently, the kids currently in 9th grade, they're the second class to come up and potentially skip Spanish 1 freshman year. So last year, were they successful in Spanish 2?
Well, I think this is really the first full year that we've had that opportunity. So
This one
we
is?
created freshman, what we tried to do was create Spanish 2 classes that were freshmen only, which wasn't the case last year. Last year, there were not many freshmen that were in the Spanish 2 level.
That was also part of the work that Nicole did with the team, was to look at how those freshmen were doing and the way we were placing those students, because there weren't a lot of students that were in Spanish 2 last year. A lot of them went into Spanish 1 or honors. And so I think that was all part of that early work that she did with the team to try to have a better transition program from 9 to 10.
So how many?
I mean, from 8 to 9.
Do you know offhand how many sections of Spanish freshman Spanish 1, or freshman Spanish 2 are at the high school right now?
I'd have to look it up, but it's at least, it's either 3 or 4 classes between an honors level and the college prep levels.
Okay, so I guess my next question is, what have we done with those teacher sections? Because whatever teacher isn't teaching those Spanish 1 classes anymore, right now has time.
Well, no, we still have the same amount of students.
Yeah.
So they're teaching Spanish 2, or they're
We just
teaching.
have more Spanish 2
Do we have
classes.
smaller, just more Spanish 2 classes?
Right. It's still the same amount of students that we're servicing. They're just in a more accelerated class than what they were entering in to begin with.
Somewhere along the line, maybe it's at the end of the road, this is going to save us sections, yes? Because students will finish Spanish a year earlier then?
Or more students will take the higher levels.
Or we could
classes.
potentially add, which is that,
We may need
is that
to
Spanish
increase.
4?
Correct.
Or do we have
Because our
AP?
upper level classes are very low.
So do we have Spanish, do we have AP Spanish, or does it end at Spanish
And we
4?
do not offer AP Spanish because we've never had, there hasn't been enough students.
Okay, so this could potentially allow us to have more upper level language classes. Oh, great. Okay.
That's, yeah, I hope so.
Okay. Could you also explain, when you say puts language teachers on team, could you explain like the student benefit to
Yeah,
being on team?
sure. I'm gonna let Lisa speak to that, because I think,
So we've been talking about two models. One model is looking at middle school as allowing us to put a world language team as a core member of what is now a 4-person team, English, Math, Science, Social Studies, to add world language to that team. And there's a ton of advantages to doing that because it becomes part of your daily rotation. Either no matter what we do, we're going to have an impact on our schedule. So whether that's like a shorter block and you get 5 a day, or you do some sort of waterfalling and you still keep with the hour-long block or something like that. Those of you who understand scheduling know what I'm talking about. But to have the world language teachers embedded on the team allows also for that cross-disciplinary, more in-depth Spanish or whatever is the world language daily, or at least 5 out of a 7-day rotation, depending on how your scheduling was going to work. But also for some cross-disciplinary into the social studies class, or into the math class, or into the English class. So that's one model that we looked at with Nicole. But she also feels, Dr. Scherf feels really strongly that choice is important to long-term language development. And so the other thing we're looking at is, okay, what if we were to allow students choice? Then you cannot put the teacher on the core team. It would have to be an exploratory class, because our teams are balanced, heterogeneous, and balanced with like a lot of different factors. If we add the factor of I've chosen German or I've chosen Spanish now to our team placement, we're just never going to be able to solve that puzzle of team student placement. So that's kind of, that's where we left the conversation, feeling that if the money is in the district budget to expand world language, we will expand one of those 2 ways under the guidance of Nicole with the best, most rigorous, most depth of language, either kind of going in the direction of choice or going in the direction of embedding it on the team.
Because some students took German this year.
Yeah, so we were able to, because of some sharing of staff across the high school and middle school. We have two small sections of German, and I say small in the sense that they're not getting the whole year. They get it twice a week. 2 sections get it twice a week for 1 year. Unlike our Spanish students who are getting it twice a week for 2 years. So it was an opportunity for Andy and I to experiment with some sharing of staff and to try to best use our staff across both channels. And the class itself is going really well. We also will be doing some testing to see how far they've gotten along the German 1 towards the end of the year.
They're going to have to take German 1 again next year.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we think some kids in half the time are going to do German 1?
We're going to find out. That's our goal. Yeah.
That would free up all sorts of teacher sections, right?
Well, it would just allow Andy to offer more advanced sections down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which I think is ultimately everyone's goal. For the students to, what Dr. Scherf was trying to guide us towards is the seal of biliteracy. The more years of a second language our students can have, the more we're going to get towards them being able to speak fluently.
Lisa, I just want to make sure that I understand. This conversation that's happening about how to implement at the middle school actually is a conversation that you are having in conjunction with the high school.
Correct.
That the idea is that this is how we're going to do language, however we decide to do it.
Yeah. Since the beginning of the school year, Angela and Andy and I have been working with Dr. Scherf, who presented here, I think, in the fall, with also Alden Metz, who is the instructional leader for the high school, is also the instructional leader for the middle school. So we've really kind of looked at the department as a 6 through 12 flow. How do we share staff? How are we all heading towards one intentional direction? And that's where we kind of got stuck with this question of, if we're able to add staff, how do we best add staff?
So the other question I think I have is that we're always sort of looking at what's our aspirational budget, what's the plan, what is this going to look like 3 years down the road? If these 2 positions appear and we're sort of put in the situation where we have to make a decision, we're going to go this way, we're going to go that way, we will then be able to project out how we could grow the program this way or that way,
Yep.
several years down the road.
Right.
So we'll be able to put together that plan.
Yes, absolutely.
Last question on this. Andy, what's a humanities teacher?
Oh, humanities, that is we probably should have put it down as a part social studies, so a dual licensed teacher for social studies
like
and for English.
Part-time ELA, part-time
Correct,
social
yes.
studies. Got it.
Or someone who's certified in humanities.
Or someone who's-
could teach
right.
both classes too. So it
Does
just depends.
Massachusetts has a humanities
They
certification?
do. Yes, they do.
Wow, that's cool.
So we're looking for either a dual certification or a humanities certification because it would allow us to offer more electives in both English.
And Andy, are you looking at because we're going to add some electives, or are class sizes growing, or like what's the?
So primarily, because of
push?
the work we've been doing with the schedule, students are going to now have the ability to take an additional elective, which they hadn't had that opportunity before. So we're looking to be able to provide more offerings ultimately, and really continue to develop the work we've done with the pathways in the program of studies.
Great. Thanks.
Yep. This is just an estimate of increases with the steps and the lanes. It's a very broad estimate. You don't know where everybody's going to land just yet, but it comes into just a little over $1 million, which is about what we figured in the beginning when we were calculating.
This is the typical Nancy Liza conservative estimate, I assume.
Yes. Yep. Later start times, this is the financial support. These items are in the budget, unlike the prior list. So at the Mullen School, we have a 0.5 increase in assistant principal and a 0.5 PE teacher. The other half, PE teacher, will go to the middle school. The high school needs a 1.0 lunch staff. Reconfiguration, that is just a broad estimate of $25,000. We really have no idea at this point what it's going to cost. Stipend for flex classes, $18,000. This online management program is $6,000. The 1.0 tech teacher, 0.2 in music, and the warmer for the CAF. The warmer, I'm hoping to buy this year for them so that they, it's something we can get off of this list and they can use it now. So if there's anything that, can currently be used, then we can do that. It's 0.7 of our actual overall budget for FY21, these increases, at about $262,000.
So the salary increases were a little over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Are these things somewhere in there too?
They're in the budget.
They're in the budget.
Increased. So these salary positions are not in this increased number?
Yes. No, they're not. Those are salary increases based on contracts.
So we have $1,016,000 plus $261,000.
Not all of this is considered salary load. The lunch
But
staff.
just in additional expenditures?
Yes.
Budget increases? Right, so I'm just trying to, because the increase is only $1,076,000.
Yes.
So we're already,
Oh, don't spoil the ending.
okay. I guess, and we already heard from Sean a little bit about that, but I don't know if concerned is the right answer I have, but the idea of attaching this to later start times has me curious. How is it the later start times produce the need for a warmer in the cafe?
Because they're going to be preparing more lunches at one time. So they have
You're
to be
gonna have
kept
more
warm.
students.
And that was a result of the schedule change or the?
Right, at high school, that along with the reconfiguration, what that's going to cost us. Again, it's more children in the cafeteria at one time.
So it's going to be 2 lunch periods as opposed to 3.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yes.
Takes a lot of stress off of the schedule. And allowed us to get within the time frame that was allotted.
Because we went to a shorter day.
Right.
Correct, 245 was our limit that we could not go over.
So in thinking about shortening the day, one of the major considerations naturally was to make sure that we were able to ensure that the students were still meeting state educational time requirements of 990 hours. So that required a schedule change at the high school that has had some impact that you're seeing in some of these proposals because they had to reduce some study hall time and add more electives during the school day. condense the amount of time that was in the schedule allotted for lunches down from 3 to 2, so that you could really reimagine how the day was going to work so that students would get everything they needed, have as much opportunity as possible for class time rather than downtime.
And the flex classes, those are new stipends? We're going to have more flex classes?
No, I can explain that. There's just going to be some changes that will happen with some of the flex. So in looking at all of this schedule change, there's a couple of flex classes that are going to move back into the day and electives. They're going to be an elective during the day. There are a couple of others that were put out in the schedule for students as both during the day and in the evening, and we're going to see how those numbers come in for registration and decide at what time those are going to run. Some of them are going to stay put, just as is in the evening. But for those right now that we're waiting to see where they're going to land, some of those teachers may end up actually teaching beyond a 1.0 because they may be moved back into the day and keep evening schedule as well. So that's where this additional funding would go to, is to supplement the salaries of those teachers who are actually working beyond a 1.0. And the advantage of that is, in trying to be as efficient as possible and to keep those teachers who have the expertise in the content area and the experience with our kids in front of the students, rather than looking to hire partial FTEs to try to fill some of those slots.
But none of the flex classes have been cut.
None of them have been cut. They've been moved around. Some of them have been moved, but none of them were eliminated.
Because that was a concern you heard from the
Yes,
student.
yes. No, none of them have been eliminated. And many of them are remaining in the evening. There's just some of them that made sense, that could move back into the school day, that we're doing that.
And the PE teacher, I'm assuming, is because have at the same time, you can't offset their schedules anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so gym is the only thing that's going to be affected by that?
Currently, yes.
Currently.
We only have 2 PE teachers that
Yes, I
service
know.
the middle and
I know.
lower both, so
Yeah.
it's tight.
I know, well, everything's tight there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I guess I'm just thinking about like performing arts and that sort of thing, and how, or art in general, like other exploratories, and how they're going to be affected also.
We're looking at a variety of things that might allow us to handle the volume without additional staff.
Okay. And the increased assistant principal, are we posting for that, or are we moving Jamie into that?
Let me answer that.
Logically, it would be Jamie being moved into that. We don't have to post.
We don't have to
Mhm.
post?
No, no.
Okay.
The other cost at the middle school that's not up here is an increase in stipends for lunch monitoring, because that's you'll have more children in there, but it's small, and we've already incorporated it in there, so there
Okay.
shouldn't be any
So we
impact.
have to hire a .5 music teacher?
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's in the budget, correct?
Yes,
The
it is.
0.5
It's no extra money, we're just replacing.
We're
one.
replacing.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is in the budget. And we're also, because I know we talked about expanding our music offerings, we've been discussing alternative ways that we might do that without adding additional staff. So we're kind of excited about some of those possibilities too.
To be announced at some future.
That's right. Once the discussion goes a
Celebration.
little, a little further.
Okay.
Okay? Any other questions on this page?
So this is the revenue, where the money is, obviously. City appropriation, which has gone up 1.76 million. Medicaid staying the same. Choice tuition has gone up. Well, we estimate it to go up 100,000. Fund balance is going down 100,000. That's if we use the full 580. Our goal is always to see if we can save a little to carry it for the following years, and we are keeping a very close eye on that. Circuit breaker is going up considerably to 222. One thing you'll notice is that I did not budget anything for transportation reimbursement. I'm not comfortable at this point putting anything in there, because we don't know we don't have the figures. So anything that we get next year will be budgeted into the following year, similar to what we do with circuit breaker currently.
Unless we know sooner than later about transportation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for like 130 to 160,000.
Can you, just for the folks, just for the listening audience out there, can you explain what it means to be expecting some funding for transportation in this budget
It's
process?
Essentially, the Student Opportunity Act for the $1.7 billion over 7 years. One of the parameters of this, which was never included in special education, districts had to cover transporting individuals with special needs outside of the district. And so there was a new provision in the act that would allow for districts to be reimbursed for transportation, which would be so helpful to us, considering how little Chapter 70 money we get. So, I understand tomorrow mayors have a meeting with Secretary Pizer. Maybe he can shed a little more insight into this budget item. I certainly will ask and see if we can get a little more clarification.
Okay. The ABLE grant almost always stays the same as Title I. Athletic revolving, a couple of years ago, we raised that from $275 to $296.5 to cover half of the grounds maintenance person that we hired. And he is able to meet that, so we kept it the same this year. Transportation always hovers around 190 to 210, so I stay right in the middle. Swayze went up a little bit this year by 27,000, so that picked up a lot of our PD money and frees up a little bit in the budget. Kindergarten revolving is relatively the same, as well as preschool revolving. So with a 3.5 city appropriation, we actually came out with 3.87 increase in revenue.
And that's fluid based on what happens with circuit breaker as well.
Yes, now circuit breaker, the money you see up there is money that we're getting this year, I budget next year.
Next year.
But that's not saying if this budget needs the money that we couldn't take and do transportation. I mean, if we knew I could calculate the amount we were getting and we were getting 160, then yes, I would put it in this budget as revenue so that it helps balance out the budget.
Do we see any opportunities to open up choice in any of the grades, like from afar right now, or?
I'm still waiting for the discussions to happen around that. So when Sean gets back, I would assume that he's going to meet with the leaderships and take a look at what's open.
In terms of the revenue here, we are working with some programs that are bringing students in at full freight. How is that reflected here? Where do we see that?
I haven't, this year here, the current year that we're in, tuition for special education is going very well.
No, I'm talking about
Educators.
Education.
those programs.
We're not doing well in that area.
And mainly because some of our funds this year came from an alternative program that was bringing us students from China. And just because of the outbreak right now of the coronavirus, there's no movement with the students from China for next year. So that's had an impact on us.
We have none budgeted for next year.
Take that one.
Expenses. The expenses come out to 5.54% increase. Obviously, the two don't match. System-wide is only at 3.6% increase, which is a very low increase for system-wide. High school has gone up 6.5%. Middle, 5.85. Mullen, 5, and the Bresnahan, 7. So it's a work in progress. We still have some work to do. We still have meetings with leadership. This is our first pass at it. So now we'll go back to the budget and we'll see how close we can come to bringing it together.
And again, keep in mind, the 3.5 is the starting point.
Yep.
Always has been, and we've
Yep.
always been, somewhat flexible with that. Last year, we were higher than that. I think you had it here.
So the possibility still exists to maybe recapture some funds already in the budget looking.
Right, we'll go back and we'll take a second look at everything, see if there's any areas for saving. We'll take another look at the choice revenue. We'll anticipate what we're going to be spending this year and see if there's savings there. Take a look at the ending in the budget and expense. And if the school committee allows us to do the same thing that we've done in the past, which is to use any remaining expense money as salaries to save choice, that money can all be rolled back into next year's budget. So we're by no means ready to say, you know, this is the end. We're just beginning.
Additional questions?
Okay, the rest is just trends that we try to do each year for you. The first one is school choice. It is starting to come back up, as you see. Over the last 2 years, it's going back up. It's never going to be at the point that it was originally.
In the good old days.
In the good old days.
Right, Steve?
Well, the problem is, though, they're still charging the rates of the good old days.
That's right.
Yeah,
And even they're charging the rates of the bad old days.
that's
still.
true. That's true.
Because the rate hasn't changed in 30 years.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. They haven't even reviewed it. School appropriations, as you can see, you know, in FY10, we got 0.5%. So.
That was before me.
I know it was. I was going to say that. FY15, we got 8.25, 5%, 3.75, 4.19, 4.11, 3.5. So
I thought last year's ended up being closer to 4.
I'll take a look at it.
I thought it was 3.9 or what?
3.9, Sean found all those things to get rid of or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna, I
Like
thought it was
paper.
3.9.
I will take a look at that. I'll fix it.
Well, I think it just shows that we have a starting point, but we don't necessarily end there.
Right, because it's 3.5 is to open the door,
Right.
right?
Yep. Enrollment. FY19 enrollment went down a little bit, but it fluctuates anyway. FY20 was back up. FY21 looks to be go down a little bit, but again, we're still waiting for the final figures, so. And special education costs, they don't go down. FY20 is about 9.9 million. FY19 was 8.9, so they go up considerably annually.
They do. And I just, can you help us understand what is
What
driving
drives?
them up?
Tuition.
I'm sure, but
Three major things with tuition. Well, probably all four of them, but tuition, the state allows them to go up 3% every year, the schools that we send our
They
children to.
give us 3% increases every year.
Oh. And there are some schools that children need, and they are, it can cost us $300,000, $400,000 a year. So, as well as transportation, which averages between $600,000 and $700,000 a year. Tuition now is over $2 million that we budget. Staffing increases every year because of the needs of the children increase every year. Social emotional is a big issue now with the children, and we need the staff to cover that. School adjustment counselors, social workers, that's a new field that we've been adding to the schools, and we benefit from that greatly, but again, it's an increase. And contracted services is another area in special education that's seeing a big rise with services that children need, home care services and such, so it just keeps on growing. As I said, this year for tuition is one of the good years. We haven't spent all of our money. We still have, money left in tuition line that we could actually move to another area, like transportation if we needed it. So far, we're not done with the year yet, but for next year, we might have 3 additional outplacements, so there goes our savings. But it fluctuates every year. It's not something you can call right down to the dime, but they're all needed.
And Nancy, we have no idea what the transportation funding was, maybe? Not even a guess?
Well, if I had to guess, I'd say, maybe 160, but
What was it?
I really
What was that cost?
don't like to say because until I actually see that money.
160,000
Yeah.
total, is
Yeah.
what you think?
So until I see that money hit,
Out of 600,000, basically?
it's gonna all depend on how much money they have to fund it. So we'll see.
Any additional questions, thoughts, next steps?
We're going to continue to prioritize the expenses. We'll take second looks at everything. Obviously, we have to still meet with the leadership. We've only had one meeting as a joint committee to go over and look at all the areas. We'll continue to make budget deductions if we can. We're not looking to, eliminate staff or cut anything. We're just in the beginning. We're taking looks. And we'll keep the school committee updated. Next meeting, you'll have your binders with the budget sheets for each school, as well as summarizations of where we are in the budget. Any priorities that changes, you'll have that in the binders. And we'll have a revised budget ready for the school committee approval on April 6th.
So when we get that, there'll be more priorities than what we've seen tonight, right? And there'll be like.
It could be, yeah. Some of the priorities might be moved into the budget when we meet. I know that the high school needs that .4 math and their humanities, so that might have to be moved into the budget now, rather than stay on the priority list.
But I think one of the things that's important is to project out. And I think that, this is something that members of the city council have also asked for. They'd like to see, this is your this year budget priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So just suppose everything fell into place and we had an extra $1 million to put towards the schools. Could you come up with a second and third tier?
Yes.
So that, we could prioritize. If something happens, say, for example, registration comes in for kindergarten, we don't need that teacher, these are funded, where would we then move that $61,000 for a kindergarten teacher into the second tiered list of requests?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should do for the third year too. And one of the things I'd like to see a little more developed in the budget is sort of where we're going with world language. Like, where do we want to be in 3 to 5 years? And what does that look like in terms of, the budget, and what should we be planning for? Is there any other subjects outside of world language that we would like to see a more detailed long-range plan?
We had talked last year about the music program,
That's true.
because it seemed to us that the high school music program is small relative to our population, and that a lot of that has to do with the amount of time kids get to spend in band class at the middle school is minimal. So we had talked about trying to grow performing arts at the middle school in hopes of growing into the high school.
Great, thank you very much. Before you leave, we do have a period of question and answer from the public, so I'd like to give the public an opportunity. If you have questions, I guess we would ask you to come up, announce your name, sign in, and ask the questions, and we'll give you whatever answers we can. You've got the presentation. I assume this presentation will be online at the website?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. Anybody in the audience have any questions they would like to ask? Comments you would like to make?
Should have a live Twitter stream.
What?
Should have a live Twitter stream.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I have a motion to close this section of the school committee for the FY21 initial school budget form presentation?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You made the motion, Sheila?
Yes, and David
Sheila made the
seconded.
motion, David seconded. I knew that look from you, Mrs. Kennedy.
Thank you, principals, and thank you,
Thank you very much.
Counselor Froese, for coming. Appreciate it. All right, I'd like to call to order the business meeting for February 25th, 2020. And Mrs. Kennedy, would you please call the roll again?
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Hofheiser?
Here.
Mr. Menon?
Still here.
Mayor Holliday?
Still present.
Ms. Spalding?
Here.
Mr. Reardon?
Here.
And Mr. Cole?
Here.
We have our period of public comment. Mr. Gangemi, do you have any comment you'd like to make?
I'm all set, thank you for asking.
Good. You are our public tonight. We have a consent agenda. We have a set of minutes from 2/3/20. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Either Mr. Callahan or the mayor. Discussion?
Your choice,
Changes?
Mrs. Kennedy.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
I know that we had a young man come to the meeting and express some questions about, I guess, the elimination of sailbot, and I was just curious if there was any follow-up with that person.
Yes. I spoke with the superintendent about just sending him a note thanking him for coming in and explaining to him that everything has stabilized. I think his name is in that.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Is it
Andover address? Andover address?
Yes. Yes, I remember him saying, so yes, I will follow up, make sure that if that letter hasn't been sent, it will be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, thoughts? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Passes unanimously. Do we have any warrants, Mr.
We
Cole?
have 3 warrants. First warrant, I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $9,491.96 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Passes unanimously.
The next warrant, I move that the following named bills and payrolls of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $43,859.36 be approved for the city auditor to make payment and deduct the funds from the school's account. There are no conflicts.
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
In the last warrant, I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $573,197.98 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you very much. We have 3 items here on the agenda that I'm sort of used to having principals present to us. Mr. Gangemi, would you like to present the 3 items on the agenda? You're the only one here.
I'll have some.
Okay, thank you. Angela, can you talk to us about them?
Sure. These are requests for new student activity accounts, and one is for Newburyport High School, putting together a group for Girls Forward, which is around gender equality. And it's existed for 6 years, but without an account. So it's open to everyone, and they're just now requesting to make the account official, the student activity account official.
I don't know that we can answer any questions, but do you have any?
I do. So these student accounts, which are great, where does the money sit? Like, is there a specific bank account that only certain people can get to, or are there reports based on what comes in, what goes out, or is it just kind of there?
I'm probably not the best person to answer that question, but I do know there are individual student activity accounts for each of the schools. They funnel through central office, but I can't give you more detail than that, really.
We could probably get more information on
Yeah.
that. They're audited by law, by statute, they're audited annually.
Mm-hmm.
So what we talked about in policy, Nancy was there, was getting access to some of that information.
Okay.
Because some of those funds are funds that are raised, some come from the district. So we've already discussed with Nancy getting a breakdown as part of our policy discussion around fundraising.
Good question.
That is a good question.
Was that tonight at your thing?
Does Girls Forward have guys in it? I know it says everyone can join, but is it a girls group?
Actually, I would have to look into that to know for sure, but it is open to everybody, and it's really about, it started as a girls group, Girls Forward did, and then it really has kind of emerged into more of kind of a gender equality group. And so, it welcomes everyone. I would have to check to see if we have any.
Is Girls Forward a thing like Girls Inc. at the middle school? Or is it just a name they chose?
I think it's just the name that they chose for this group that
like I've heard that.
emerged at the high school.
I'm going to ask the Magic Box.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Doesn't the middle school do a program like that, though? Where they pull
Theirs
up
is
kids
Girls
with-
Inc.,
That's
which is
extra things.
actually an external program that comes in to run that program.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff with youth
Girl-
services.
Yeah, no, I know. I just didn't know that.
Girl Forward is a community of support dedicated to creating and enhancing opportunities for girls moved and displaced globally, but that doesn't seem to be what we have.
Right, I don't think that's, we could find that out. Would you like to know that?
Just curious,
Okay.
that's all. When we had talked about it at the middle school with Girls Inc., a discussion had come up, which I don't know if it ever went anywhere, but like boys really need that curriculum. But they weren't getting it anywhere. And so we had talked about how do we get a gender equality, a gender issues discussion curriculum to everybody. So I was just curious if that's ever, I mean, I know this is a club, so
Right.
they can do as they please.
Right, and
But,
I'm just running on memory about this club, and I believe it was formed initially for exactly what you were talking about, David. So I'm pretty sure it's been open and it's had, multi-gender participation, but I'll find that out to be certain. But my recollection of when it first started, it was because there was really a need, and there were some students who came forward and said, we need to address this.
Best reason going.
Do these questions preclude taking a vote on it tonight?
No, just curiosity.
Okay, why don't we do them one at a time?
Okay?
Do we have a motion to accept the recommendation?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Sheila is seconding it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Discussion.
Question?
I'm just concerned in that, I certainly think this is a wonderful group. I've heard of it too. I remember Andrea Egbert talking about the need for this Gender Equality Social Issues Club and the fact that it's been in existence for 6 years, which is great. But they said that they will be doing fundraisers. And then some of the information that's supposed to be checked off, do they require advance authorization of the school committee or principal? I think those are questions
They're policy questions.
that we're debating right now.
Yes.
And, I think at this point, until we come up with a policy, I would like to recommend that any group doing fundraising at least check in with their principal of the school. Is that, given the whole conversation that's still being generated, I'm sure you all got another email today concerning some of the fundraising approaches that are happening in the schools. And that just struck me.
So I believe that our policy currently says any fundraising has to be approved by the principal. So I
They
think.
check no here.
I'm saying I think that's a mistake on the form, though, not a policy question. So yes, we can ask them to go back and give us a new form.
It's just, it should be taken off the form because
Because it's policy.
it's policy.
But it should be, the checkbox should just be said, any fundraising has to be
We
approved.
agree to confer
Yeah.
with or gain approval of prior to, something like that.
I have
Right,
that
on
right
that.
here somewhere.
Additional questions, comments?
Good point, though.
Gotcha, yeah.
Are we prepared to vote?
With that change, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? passes unanimously. You have a second request from the county, which is an amazing request as far as I'm concerned.
Can I just go back to this? It says in the policy, fundraising activities that wish to involve students in the fundraising process shall be submitted to the superintendent for approval, not even the principal. But Sean needs to approve all of those things.
And these do come to him for his signature, but
Yeah.
I think that extra
fundraising.
layer for the principals is a good one. We could certainly add language about that.
That will come out of policy conversations, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So add language about the principal, just this checkbox. Okay.
So we're going to have Girls Forward come back with a new form or submit a new form? Because they should be clear.
Sure. We will approve it, but we would like to see the new
Yeah.
form.
Okay.
Can I just point something out? And that's, you have 3 organizations here. All of them are on different forms, or forms that complete some areas but not others.
Correct?
I mean, the inconsistency in there, that seems like a problem. To me, the way I look at this, we're looking to approve 3 of the same, right? These are all student activity account requests, yet we have 3 different forms, or 3 forms filled out to different levels of completion.
I agree that it's a problem. I would assume that policy will reconcile to a single form. But you're right, yeah, it is.
I mean, I think I don't want to ruin anybody's intent here. It's just that there should be better consistency here.
Agreed? Okay.
Would you like, okay, do you want to continue on, or would you like us to go back and try to get some consistent forms? Because we have another meeting next week. We could
You
come
can
back
start
with,
putting together a consistent form. I mean, I think
okay,
policy will emerge that says this is the form we use.
okay, all right. So the second one doesn't have any of the checkboxes attached, as I see. But this is for a Model UN at the NOC. And as you know, I think we've talked to you a little bit about how the high school team has worked with the NOC students in trying to build this team, and it's been a wonderful experience. It's existed as a club. The account didn't exist until now. Now they're requesting that. Students volunteer to be a part of it, and it spans grades 6 through 8. And they have traditionally worked with the high school Model UN team.
Who are the advisors? I mean, the names are there, I just can't read.
At the middle school,
I'm
it's
sorry.
Miss Wilczynski. She's a Spanish teacher.
Oh, yeah, Luann.
Okay.
I don't know who the other one is.
Riley?
I don't know.
Teacher advisor.
It's okay, no, I was just curious, that's all.
I know.
And this one's not signed by Sean?
No, because this came in afterwards, so I can sign these after you approve. I guess they were supposed to be signed after your approval anyway, so we're just waiting.
Sean's laying down on the
He
job.
did. So, but we'll get those signed.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
I feel bad not doing it.
A motion to approve?
Yes.
So moved.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Recognized as a student organization.
Second.
Conversation. What's,
I think we can fix the form and have a print name next to signature going forward.
yeah, is there an issue
Is
other
that
than
what the
this
issue-
form is?
We're still in the UN one right now, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Not you, yes.
which it's at a different school, so perhaps that's why it's a different form.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. But that's something we could make consistent district-wide pretty easily.
We could put it online.
I just want to make sure they understand the expectations.
I guess I have a question. So
The advisors, is that who you?
Yes.
Okay.
And the kids, like, they didn't get the UN didn't get the, sort of ironic, right? The UN doesn't get the student participant to sign off on their own student activity club.
Is the UN one, the adult supervision part, is a stipended position, so where does that, who's that person? Is that one of the 3 people signed on here?
Well,
No,
one
it
is
might be the person.
Lisa.
Yeah. It might be, I
It's
don't know,
it's
like-
probably the 2 advisors. that will
So
split
they're
a
just getting a stipend above and beyond whatever their normal salary is for this one particular club? Okay. And that money only comes from fundraising?
No,
money?
the stipend is paid through the
It's in the
district.
contract.
It's
It's in the
contract.
contract.
Okay. I guess I'm wondering what would be in the bank account fundraising for what? For the Model UN trip to somewhere?
Oh, yeah, it would probably be stuff like that, yeah.
Although, I'll be honest, like, if we're going to redesign the form, it's going to say that up front, because,
Yes.
like, I know students who have been in this, and it was a cost. So the kids still had to pay a small fortune to go on the trip, so
They
is the,
still usually do fundraising.
is the fundraising
There's a lot of
subsidizing?
them to subsidize
Yeah, okay.
and bring the cost
Yeah.
down, or to help students who don't have the funds.
yeah, so that's all, just like what the plan is,
Right.
to do any, if you're doing any fundraising, what are you going to do it for?
And I would just request that in the future that the teacher advisor be here, who's requesting, this, us to approve this.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to them asking, can they go on a field trip out of state? Right?
Yeah, I suspect between Sean not being around to sign off on these and vacation week and these things coming in and just getting put into the packet, I suspect that that's part of the seemingly random or chaotic collection we have here.
Yeah, and it was my understanding that there are some that just come through as paperwork to be reviewed and then voted, and others that are brand new that come and are presented, so.
Yeah, we can request that the student advisors come in if they're asking for an account. Great. Any further discussion? We prepared to take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. One more.
One more. I'm sorry that I don't have more information for you. Okay, the next one is for Newburyport High School, and it is for the Alpine Ski Team. And the teacher advisor is Kyle Hodson, and he's, the adult supervision is going to be in a coaching role. It's for grades 9 through 12.
What does it mean, meet academic eligibility?
Yeah.
They have to be passing the classes to be able to be in
Is that
part
a,
of
is
the
that a Maya thing?
Yeah.
That's probably
I
a
think that's
requirement for Maya for
regulation for
teams,
being
for
on a
division.
team.
Yeah.
But they have to have a certain grade average
Yeah.
Okay.
in order to participate in the sport.
So this one's a
That
little
could
bit
have been
different.
written in, though,
It
too.
is,
This is an actual team, this isn't a club.
right.
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 Do the other teams in the high school have accounts, or are they also raising money and it's just sitting somewhere?
Oh, it's never just sitting somewhere.
Well, I know,
There's
but-
either, but I don't know if it is actually in an athletics account or whether it's
Well,
in
all right,
student
so
activity account.
That's the second part of my question, I guess. So, in theory, fundraising for, say, football is supposed to only go to football,
Mm-hmm.
nothing else. So that would be the same thing for this. If these kids raise this for whatever buses to the mountain,
Mm-hmm.
nobody else can use it. So if the Alpine Ski Team, which here seems to be new, so it doesn't exist right now, is that correct?
It's a team with Georgetown, right, just shared.
It's
shared.
shared.
It's a co-op team.
Okay.
I don't know if there's
Like
another,
the
is it
swim team, I think, we've got a similar
Yeah.
Or
situation.
hockey or something.
Hockey,
Yeah,
hockey, go,
Mm-hmm.
right.
hockey, swim, and skiing, I think are,
So, well,
Wrestling.
it'd be great if
Wrestling
Kyle were
too?
here for this.
I think we do it with like protected.
If this is new, but it's not, it's new, it's just the new situation, or it's the current Georgetown setup, or what did you just say? I'm
I
sorry. Someone said it shares.
I think they want to break off
into
and
their own.
create a Newburyport team instead of a collaborative team.
Can I just say, I think we have a million questions for Kyle. I really do. So I mean, like,
Yeah.
if this is a way for him to come in and talk to us about this, I mean, I'm up for that. I mean, I feel like
I think we.
just got a lot
I
of
think we
questions
need
about all this stuff.
That just because it's a whole new team doesn't exist, right?
We talked in policy about finance taking this on now, getting the information about where the money's going, how it's raised, what it goes to, what it's restricted for. I mean, that's all information that we're going to begin to gather now.
Right, well, I mean, and
because of policy.
that's all well and good, but this is a brand-new team that really doesn't even exist yet, but we don't know anything at all about
Well, it
it.
does exist.
I mean, well, in its current form, it exists, but it seemed to be changing because it says new.
Yeah.
I don't
Like I said,
think
I'm all
we can.
for it, but I mean,
Oh, yeah,
I
it's
do
great.
think because it's
But-
new and, I don't know, I just think we should probably hear more about this.
How many students, how much does it cost to, participate in this? How much money are we going to be asking the students to raise?
Because it's going to be big for skiing,
Yeah.
right? So
And does
Skiing, busing, and-
do sports teams in general have student activity accounts?
Right. I think it just fits into the bigger question about either fundraising or each sport or,
Because sports already collect money, like,
they all have user fees
What's it?
already. Sports,
they all have
athletic fees.
athletic fees, right? And don't
Apart
we
from-
charge more for certain sports?
Yes.
So is skiing already a more expensive sport?
Is each team managing their own account and their own money, or does it go through one person, like
No, we
Kyle?
don't have,
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to go to Kyle.
Okay.
The varsity JV teams, those kinds of, go through Kyle, right?
I think everything does. I've been approached, I mean, I just
mean,
I
you also-
think it's a bigger conversation.
You also have on here under student travel that you have it listed that who typically prepares student travel requests is coach, who approves this request AD. So you basically have the same person preparing and approving the request. So I don't know if that was wisely written.
I don't think that if we push this back after having AD come in or whatever would be a big deal because the season is nearing its end.
Right, it's not
Right,
going to
March.
start a brand new team.
So they're not going to start until next winter.
So motion to table.
So moved.
Second.
And would you
Discussion.
like
You
me
can't
to?
discuss the
All
table.
right, okay.
What is the motion?
Motion is to
Put it
table.
back or to approve it?
To table.
No, the motion
Table
is to table the request to approve the Alpine Ski Team at the high school.
Are we going to ask Kyle to come to a finance meeting or a school committee meeting?
Sorry.
Yeah.
School committee?
I think we're going to try to gather all the information we can, and then it would make sense to have him come to the school committee meeting so we can ask informed questions as opposed to simply probing questions. So, yes, he'll come to a school committee meeting, but I think we want to be prepared with questions based on information we've gathered.
I just wonder if maybe he should come and do a presentation on athletic costs and fees and fundraising and all those sorts of things. Money in, money out.
And this,
And,
Right.
and then
No, it's
while he's here, he can tell us
it's a
about the new
much
ski
bigger
team.
conversation.
right.
Do they get
And he might not
uniforms?
be ready to do that in a week, so we might have
Yeah.
to ask him to come the,
Yeah,
The second meeting in March?
end of March, yeah.
Okay.
Was that the,
Will do.
Great.
I believe we didn't vote on the
Right, I
motion
was just
to
about to do
table.
that.
that's the 16th.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion to table?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Motion to table passes unanimously.
The other two were voted.
The other two were voted affirmatively, with stipulations about changing
Changing
the
the
form
form.
and signatures.
Okay.
The last item on the agenda that we have for today is continued discussion of draft school committee goals. Policy met, and I would sort of start by turning this conversation, I guess, over to Dave. In effect, some of it is a report out of policy.
Policy met tonight. We talked about a lot of things. We started off talking about the goals and what some policy implications would be in a couple of them. We did get into conversations about whether or not certain things are appropriate goals. If they become goals, what would priorities be? How we'd want to word our goals, meaning that we want to just list the broad umbrella goal and have sort of process and procedure things listed somewhere else, and maybe if they become a policy to put it there. It was pretty open. as far as the conversation goes. But we did cover I think you guys all got a copy of a number of goals, some of which we have talked about already, like further improving the superintendent evaluation process, budget process, things we'd like to see in a budget process. We also talked about, we didn't really get too far into this one, we talked a little bit about how to shape our meetings and some things we can expect in the meetings. Some of that's based on a mask policy update they came up with that includes things like they were suggesting we have sectioned in the meeting for old business and for new business. Like you brought up tonight, somebody came up to speak last week, like what happened to that? So an old business section versus, I've been hearing about this, can we get this on an agenda at some point?
Fundraising policy.
We talked about fundraising a lot, but realized that we really need to sit down and focus just on that discussion and start to generate where would we like that to go, what questions do we have for legal, such as like how does the money flow in and out, who's going to be tracking that. We also talked about maybe trying to figure out what would it cost to not have fundraising, like what sort of supplement to the budget are we looking at overall. So Nancy's going to start to look at some of those things and put that on the agenda for finance at the next time, because it's a big enough topic that it's going to span both committees. Athletic fees did come up. There are some courses in the district. I say that. I know of one course in the district that charges a fee. You have to pay to be in the course. And so I don't know if there are any others or even how to start looking at that.
What course is that?
The photography course at the high school has a fee attached to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that based on the conversation that we had, it seems like we're close in articulating language on a number of goals that we would bring to the school committee for conversation about priorities.
Yep.
We're pretty close on a number of them.
Agreed.
We had, there was a goal about food services, and there's also a goal about the school committee working with the superintendent around the strategic plan. And I guess there's one more that I think I'm forgetting that I didn't have.
I had talked about, we didn't even get to talk to this one, but we had
3?
What's that?
You're saying number 3?
Number 3 was the
Special
our
topic
meetings, right? The discussion about how we
All right.
hold our
Right,
meetings.
yeah, we have some language around
There was one about courses in the catalog, about not,
18, yeah.
right, there are some courses, there are some places in the high school catalog where it seems that passing a course does not get a student entrance into the next course. For example, the foreign language department at the high school says you need a 73 or more to get to to go to the next level, which is a contradiction to the idea that we pass a class with a 65. So just to clarify that, we had also talked about a while ago working with, again, this would be with legal counsel, tech department. I would imagine the union would get involved in this, but about who owns documents written on district computers, and what process do we have when teachers or anybody leaves the district to get files off of their computers. So like, if a teacher is involved in a curriculum writing group for the district, and then they leave the district, but all that group's files are on their computer, who owns those? Who owns those files, and how do we make sure that we're not losing that work? Right, and all this stems from the fact that Nick's gone and I don't have the policy files. So it was like,
But they are.
I know, somebody does, I understand that, but I think that's because Nick was good about doing that. But do we have that same sort of relationship with all of the teachers in the district? Do we want to have a policy about offboarding? Like if teachers are going to leave, what do we do with their computer files? It seems to be a smart thing in today's day and age to just have it.
Well, or even
It's a
keeping
records
backups,
manage-
too. If they're-
records
If they're
management.
working on a personal device, they should be required to back stuff up to a server.
I agree with that. I think too, we should maybe look at acceptable use policy, because back when I was doing tech integration,
Yeah.
intellectual property was all part of an acceptable use
Yeah.
policy. So I think we should maybe take a look at that and see if there's anything in there.
Yep.
Because
So we can definitely add on, like a review of that. Something else the policy committee started doing tonight, we just looked at section A of the policy book, thinking that we should go back through it and just, the only thing that really came up for question was the district practice, and I say practice because I couldn't find that as an actual policy, of asking parents who go on field trips to get fingerprinted, not just quarried.
We think it might be a state, we don't, I think it's a state requirement, but I don't know.
I think when that came up, it was not yet required. It was going to eventually be implemented by the state, but we jumped ahead and did it. I remember having a conversation with Susan about it.
We can,
but
that's pretty, that's.
doesn't mean it hasn't come
Find
in
out if
yet.
it has,
but-
yeah.
Right, that's, you know, there may be policy implications, they're not goal implications. There may be
Yes.
policy implications to that, but that also seems like a question we can get answered tomorrow.
But it also would be, because I remember the conversation that we were concerned that it would have a chilling effect on volunteers. And I would like to know if it has. I don't know
It has.
if we've ever followed up on that.
When it first came out, it had a very divisive piece in the community.
I mean, I know I stopped doing before I got on the school committee, doing as much volunteer stuff because I wasn't going to go deal with that, you know?
Right, it was very burdensome.
But you have to go
It's-
to Danvers. I guess they don't do
No,
it here
Haverhill.
locally. Haverhill. I went to Danvers for mine,
It's
yeah.
probably a better.
There are a couple different places to go, but it's also
Haverhill's.
a cost,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's it became pretty divisive, and people were upset. But Susan put that. I didn't see it as a policy, so I think it might be a practice.
So we should.
If that's the case, we just.
State requirement.
That's all. It's just in section A, so I just, something we should look into, and if we're not going to require it, we should let people know.
I know employees were required, certainly.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Well, school committee members are
Absolutely.
required.
Employees, school committee members.
Some of those regulations depend on whether you are going to be alone with the child or whether you're in the company of another adult with the child. So we'll have to look at that.
Like a
You know.
field trip, if you're a chaperone and you'll have a potential for walk one kid to the bathroom alone,
Right.
then yes. But if it's you're at reading, like I'm going to be reading in the Bresnahan next week,
Right.
I don't need to be fingerprinted.
Right.
Because there'll be multiple people around.
Other adults.
I believe part of the initial controversy where there was a veterans group that was going to come speak, and they were told that they needed to get fingerprinted before.
Yeah, that's not usually the case. If teachers are around when other people are there and the students aren't left alone with the person, there's a different set of rules than when you have sole responsibility.
Just something to clarify.
Let's just clarify.
Yeah.
Yep. So I don't know if the committee at large read through the document, has anything to say or think or add to or detract from. As is for the most part, the goals we had talked about tonight would be the things highlighted in yellow. Like the school committee will work with the superintendent to create a process for yearly evaluation of our superintendent. And we really just upticked the process. Right now, we have a means for evaluating a superintendent at the end of the year, but there's no really process throughout the year to go about doing that.
Collecting the data, yeah. Is this seem like a reasonable way to go? That I will work with you. We came up with some language. Let's identify the whole range of goals. It looks like there's 8 or 9 potential goals with the language that we think should be there. And then have a discussion, we can certainly do that by the next meeting. Then, once we've got those 8 or 9 goals, we can have a conversation about how we want to deal with them, how we want to prioritize them, what we want to focus on, whatever that is. But that would move the process along and again, extract these goals based on the language that we shared. I mean, I just want to get it going, so.
Yep, that's
So we
all.
add it to the next agenda meeting. You and I will make sure that we're on the same page about the language for each goal, and we'll distribute them as part of the next packet, which means, it'll be going out at the end of the week.
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to meet this week. I mean, it would be tomorrow. So that's probably not going to happen for Monday. But certainly for the end of March,
Okay.
maybe the 3 of us can get back together
Okay,
and work on that.
that sounds fine. Does that seem reasonable to everybody?
Good, Steve?
Any thought of looking at like a strategic plan review as a goal?
We did, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I suggested strongly.
okay,
We have language
all right, good,
for that.
all right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
We good here for the next step?
Yeah, anybody else?
No, that's good.
Okay, so we'll just find a time sometime in the next week or 2, and
Weeks, yeah.
that way we can have it on the agenda for the 16th.
Sounds good.
Great.
Is there any additional business? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second?
We have an enthusiastic vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You should put your dollar on the table.
Yeah, look at that. You got it.
Not even 8.
Yeah, we've gotten it. Screwed again.
Sharif? How you doing?
Good, how are you?